Alright, good morning everybody. We are here with break 449. It is a 26 League Heroes combo break featuring the 26 League Heroes sealed case, 2 26 League Hero hobby boxes and 5 26 League Heroes starter packs. Our team list for this one: Broncos, Geoff Warnes; Raiders, Dean Mich; Bulldogs, Grech; Sharks, Nicholas Verwey; Dolphins, Lee Marschall; Titans and Manly, Notaras; Storm, Carina, Spiteri; Knights, Ryan Nuttall; Cowboys, Nicholas Verwey; Eels, Daryl, Barton; Panthers, Lachlan, Rabbitohs, Nicholas Verwey; Dragons, Warren Stoddart; Roosters, Joel Hardie; Warriors, Troy Dugdell; Tigers, Paul Burkhart. Alright, here we are. You can't quite see in the background, but I have already taken the retail boxes out of the case. I finally listened to myself before we got started. Now, it won't save a lot of time. Oh, what am I clicking? I don't have a proper mouse. Won't save a lot of time, but at least I'm not getting up and going over there and taking the boxes out while everyone's just sitting there. Let me get that plugged in. Alright, our hobby boxes, we're going to move to the back and they will be the last thing we do. Let's get our bonus packs out of these, ready to go. Hope everyone's got their entry into the Pick the Score giveaway, guys. If you're in this break, then you definitely should be in that giveaway. If you've made a purchase at all in 2026 through the website. And of course, got your tips in. You're good, aren't you? You're quick. Well, technically, yes, I've got 3. I just don't know what they are. We haven't even opened a pack. Is that the new version of Got Milk? Alright, let's go. League heads, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Have we seen the new break listed yesterday? A full case of starters. So it's 40 starter packs in the one break. Dylan Edwards for Panthers, along with a retail case. Payne Haas for the Broncos. That one's actually not bad. You've also got the bonus hobby box as well as the sticker album and box that would get randomised as one lot at the end. Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. And lucky last league head stars. Let's get it started for the Titans. Big Tino. Alright. Let's get these packets opened. League heads, Sam Barrels for the Titans. Luminous, Roger Tuvasa Sheck for the Warriors. Game breakers, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Tiana Penatani Gray for the Sharks. Gladiators, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Number 87. Latrell Mitchell, Luminous for the Rabbitohs. Morning, Lee. Good luck, buddy. I mean, you got one of the bonus cards already, so it's not a bad start, I guess. Good vibes for the break. Game breakers, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Luminous Azali Hopkins for the Dragons. Spins up. Bang Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Luminous Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. League heads, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Sean Russell for the Eels. These are just the first 15 packets out of the starter packs, guys. We haven't started the retail boxes. Alafiana Khan-Pierre for Titans. Luminous, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Red Triumph, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous, Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous, Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. League heads, Gahamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous, Casey McLean for Panthers. Bang Reese Walsh for Broncos. Luminous, Chance Nicole Cockstad for the Warriors. Colour die cut, Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Luminous, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Bang Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous, Ali Brigginshaw for Broncos. We've got an Origin Predictor. League heads, Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Game Breakers, Hugo Savala for Roosters. Luminous Milwaukee Photo Ika for Titans. And that's the end of them. Now, as I mentioned, I've already gone ahead and taken these out of the case as we couldn't see it all happening anyway, so it's pointless me having them waiting. So it just means we can get into them that little bit quicker. This is box 1 out of the case, guys. Let's get these out of our way. And we'll keep getting into it. Bang Jack Bostock for Dolphins. Luminous Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Game Breakers Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Die Cut Saya Iongi for the Eels. Luminous Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. League Heads Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Ethan Bullymore for Manly. Game Breakers Nita Maynard for the Dragons. Luminous Jesse Colhoun for the Sharks. Bang Xavier Coates for Storm. Luminous Kurt Capewell for the Warriors. League Heads Reese Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers Gehamat Shabarski for Broncos. Luminous Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Mercury James Tedesco for the Roosters. 145. Dream Buller Luminous for the Tigers. League Heads Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. Luminous Xavier Coates for Storm. Bang Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous Herbie Farnworth for Dolphins. Game Breakers, Asai Yongi for Eels. Luminous Dylan Egan for the Dragons. League Heads Murata Nakor for the Warriors. Luminous Abby Church for the Eels. Colour die cuts Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. League Head Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Luminous Isaiah Ayo for Panthers. Game Breakers Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Dylan Brown for the Knights. We have Clive Churchill Medal Predictor. Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. League Heads Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Red Triumph Renato Militalo for the Sharks. Luminous Tyron Wishart for Storm. League Heads Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous Kira Dib for the Cowboys. Game Breakers Tuikami Kamika for Storm. Luminous Braden Trindle for the Sharks. League Heads Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous Sam Verrills for Titans. Bang Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous Bradman Best for the Knights. League Heads Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Luminous Junior Paulo for the Eels. Gladiators Reese Walsh for the Broncos, 163. Felice Kafusi, Luminous for the Dolphins. Game Breakers, Tolator Koala for Manly. Luminous Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Bang Asaya Iongi for the Eels. Luminous Lachlan Elias for the Dragons. League Heads Ray Stone for Dolphins. Luminous Billy Smith for the Roosters. Die Cuts Jake Clifford for the Cowboys. Luminous Max King for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Lyson Albert Jones for the Warriors. Red Triumph for Manly. Luminous Reece Walsh for the Broncos. League Heads Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Luminous Tolator Koala for Manly. Bang Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Game Breakers Isaac Tago for Panthers. Luminous Payne Huss for the Broncos. Die Cuts Ethan Blimore for Manly. Luminous Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Alright, last packet for the box. League Heads Dylan Walker for the Eels. Luminous Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. And that's box one done and dusted. Get these ones tidied up out of the way and we'll get straight into box number 2. Box number 2. We got the Origin Predictor out of the starter packs, and we got a Clive Churchill Predictor out of our first box. And we're just about to start box number 2. Die Cut Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Luminous Appy Nichols for the Warriors. League heads, Jareem Buller for the Tigers. Luminous, Carl Lawton for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Luminous, Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Bang, Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Luminous, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. League heads, Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Luminous, Trent LaRoe for Storm. Red Triumph, Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Luminous, Jamal Fogarty for Manly. Game breakers, Tamale for the Raiders. Luminous, AJ Brimson for Titans. League heads, Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous, Marata McCaw for Warriors. Game breakers, Dane Gagai for the Knights. Luminous, Moses Leota for Panthers. Bang Falago for Storm. Jermaine Hopgood, Luminous for the Eels. Game breakers, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Luminous, Mackenzie Wheel for the Cowboys. League heads, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Die cut, Kurt Capewell for the Warriors. Luminous, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. League heads, Sam Verrills for the Titans. Lachlan Galvin, Luminous for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Big Tino for the Titans. Luminous, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Bang Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous, Hugo Savala for the Roosters. League heads, Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous Falago for Storm. Hey, Daily M Premiership Predictor, Brendan Smith, Luminous for the Rabbitohs. Jumpers starting to annoy me. Mercury, Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs, 176. Luminous Wade Egan for the Warriors. Game Breakers, Chance, Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous Latu Finu for Tigers. League heads, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Bang Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Game Breakers, Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. League heads, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Luminous Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Die cut Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Bang Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Angelina for the Bulldogs. League heads, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Zach Lomax for the Eels. Game Breakers, Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Gladiators, Ray Stone for the Dolphins, number 213. Jamie Humphries, Luminous for the Rabbitohs. I think the end of this box, this jumper's got to go. League heads, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Luminous, Billy Walters for the Broncos. Die cut, Payne Huss for the Broncos. Luminous, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Bang, Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Luminous, Greg Marschall for the Knights. League heads, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Kulikefu, Luminous for Dolphins. Triumph, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous, Emma Veron for the Sharks. Game breakers, Julia Robinson for the Broncos. Luminous, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. League heads, Stefano Utikamanu for Storm. And Luminous Tamale for the Raiders. That is box number 2. Get box number 3 open, and I will put these cards in that box. So, uneven. I'm not sure what's going on there. More so that it's odd. You don't normally, you find them, very rarely find them uneven. Alright, let's go. Box number 3. League heads, Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. Luminous, Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm. And let's deal with this right now. Game breakers, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous, Gehamat Shabarski for the Broncos. Bang, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. League heads, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Luminous, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Red Triumph for the Warriors. Luminous Keezy Apps for the Tigers. League heads, Falago for the Storm. Luminous Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. Die cuts, Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. Luminous Kalen Ponga for Knights. League heads, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous Lachlan King Togia for the Dragons. Bang Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous Isaac Tago for Panthers. Game Breakers, Dream Buller for the Tigers. Luminous Alfiana Kamki Era for Titans. League heads, Mich Kenny for Panthers. Luminous Addo Carr for the Eels. Bang Tolator Koala for Manly. Luminous Robert Toya for the Roosters. Die cut Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Luminous Simona Torfa for the Raiders. League heads, Payne Huss for the Broncos. Luminous Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Game Breakers, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Bang Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Luminous Reed Marnie for the Cowboys. League heads, Roger Tuvasa Shek for the Warriors. Luminous Cookie for Dragons. Red Triumph, Murray Talagi for Cowboys. Luminous, Dominic Young for the Knights. Gladiators, Jeremiah Nanai, number 219. Dean Mariner, Luminous for Broncos. League heads, Samula Fainu for the Tigers. Luminous, Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Game breakers, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. League heads, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Kurt Capewell for the Warriors. Luminous, Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Die cut, Xavier Coates for Storm. Luminous, Apasai Coruscant for Tigers. Game breakers, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous, Liam Martin for Panthers. League heads, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Bang, Jalen De Groot for Titans. Luminous, Luca Moretti for Eels. League heads, Nico Hines for the Sharks. James Fisher-Harris, Luminous for Warriors. Die cut, Clayton Forlalo for Manly. Luminous, Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Bang, Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Luminous, Val Holmes for the Dragons. Game breakers, Jesse Calhoun for the Sharks. Luminous, Big Tino for Titans. 4 packets left in box number 3. League heads, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Kale Hero for the Sharks. Game Breakers Kira Dib for the Cowboys. Luminous Cody Nicarima for the Dolphins. Die cut Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jason Saab for Manly. Mercury Katoni Stags for the Broncos, number 306. Luminous Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Right. Box number 4. If I can get her open. There we go. Bang Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. League heads Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Game Breakers Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Luminous Saratoga Tuki for Tigers. League heads Jacob Little for the Dragons. Luminous Connolly Lumi Lou for Dolphins. Die cut Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Samuel Stonestreet for the Sharks. Game Breakers Tiana Penatani Gray for the Sharks. Luminous Tanila Paseka for Manly. League heads Alifiana Kampi Era for Titans. Luminous Sam Walker for the Roosters. Bang Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous John Bateman for the Cowboys. Game Breakers Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous Jamin Salmon for the Bulldogs. Red Triumph Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous Cameron Munster for Storm. League Heads Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous Brian Kelly for the Titans. Game Breakers Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Bailey Simpson for the Eels. Die Cuts Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous Jesse Southwell for the Knights. League Heads Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous Lucy Arno Lay Lua for the Dragons. Game Breakers Loco Tonga for the Dragons. Luminous Katoni Stags for the Broncos. Bang Elifiana Campi Era for Titans. Luminous Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. League Heads Max King for the Bulldogs. Luminous Asaya Papalihi for the Panthers. Dally M. Luminous Alex Seafarth for the Tigers. League Heads Brian Top for Panthers. Luminous Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. Bang Blaze Tulagi for Panthers. Luminous Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers Apasai Coruscant for the Tigers. Luminous Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. League Heads KO Weeks for the Raiders. James Tedesco Luminous for the Roosters. Die Cuts James Fisher Harris for the Warriors. Luminous Max Plath for the Dolphins. League Heads Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Red Triumph Katoni Staggs for the Broncos. Luminous Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. League Heads Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Game Breakers Hugo Savala for the Roosters. Luminous Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Bang Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous Tom Starling for the Raiders. League Heads Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous Tamika Upton for the Broncos. Die cut Moses Leota for Panthers. Luminous Jesse Aramian for the Sharks. League Heads Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Bang Jesse Aramian for the Sharks. Luminous Ben Trbojevic for Manly. Gladiators Braden Trindle for the Sharks, number 245. Luminous Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Game Breakers KO Weeks for the Raiders. Oh, got distracted with my arm. Will Penasini for the Eels. I don't know, it just felt weird when I leant on it. Mercury Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs, number 180. Luminous Jonah Pezzett for Storm. Game Breakers Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. And that's box 4 done and dusted. Alright, here we go. Box number 5. Is it lucky number 5? We shall soon find out. Game breakers, Samai Matorfa for the Raiders. Luminous, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Die cuts, Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Roger Tulvasa Sheck for the Warriors. League heads, Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Tiana Penatani Grey for the Sharks. Game breakers, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Luminous, Terrell May for the Tigers. Bang Tamale for the Raiders. Luminous, Elisha Albert Jones for the Warriors. League heads, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous, Max King for the Bulldogs. Mercury, Trent LaRoe for Storm, 135. Luminous, Billy Smith for the Roosters. League heads, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Lachlan Elias for the Dragons. League heads, Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous, Junior Paulo for the Eels. Game breakers, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Gladiators, Tui Kamikamika for Storm, number 343. Luminous, Jack Williams for the Eels. League heads, Greg Marschall for the Knights. Luminous, Stefano Utukamanu for Storm. Bang Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Beau Fermor for Titans. League heads, Isaiah Katoa for Dolphins. Luminous, Jason Tom Lolo for Cowboys. Die cut Wade Egan for the Warriors. Luminous Alex Twal for the Tigers. Bang Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous Tyron Wishart for Storm. Game Breakers Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Kira Dibb for the Cowboys. Die cut Mich Kenny for Panthers. Luminous Braden Trindle for the Sharks. League heads Moses Leota for Panthers. Luminous Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. League heads Harry Grant for Storm. Luminous Mitchell Barnett for the Rabbitohs. No, Latrell Mitchell, my bad. I knew what I meant. Game Breakers Blaze Talagi for Panthers. KO Weeks Luminous for the Raiders. League head Milwaukee Whanawaka for Titans. Luminous Sam Verrills for the Titans. Bang Lehe Hopewate for Manly. Luminous Felice Kafusi for Dolphins. I've just been putting it down there, so I'll chuck it down if you'll put there. Thank you very much. Yeah, good words for that. Coffee delivery. Game Breakers William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous Bradman Best for the Knights. Bang Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Luminous Tommy Turbo for Manly. Game Breakers Dylan Egan for the Dragons. Luminous Xavier Willison for the Broncos. League head James Fisher Harris for the Warriors. Luminous Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Die cut Emery Gula for the Dragons. Luminous Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Red Triumph Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous White for the Roosters. Game breakers, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Luminous Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Brian Kelly, bang for the Titans. Luminous Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs. League head Tom Starling for the Raiders. Luminous Jake Trbojevic for Manly. Game breakers, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Tuikami Kamika for Storm. Triumph Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous Blake Brayley for the Sharks. League heads, Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous Chanel Harris Tavita for Warriors. And lucky last for box number 5. Die cut, Jalen de Groot for Titans. Luminous Murray Talagi for Cowboys. Alright, box number 6. Alright, 5 boxes done. Game breakers, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Samula Finu for Tigers. League heads, Alex 12 for Tigers. Luminous Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Bang Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Abby Church for the Eels. Luminous Philip Semi for the Titans. League heads, Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous Patrick Carrigan for Broncos. League heads, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Luminous Dane Gagai for the Knights. Die cut Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Luminous Connor Watson for the Roosters. Game Breakers Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Luminous Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Bang Hugo Savala for the Roosters. Luminous Dylan Walker for the Eels. League Heads Hammer Fido for the Dolphins. Luminous Zahara Temera for the Raiders. Game Breakers Ali Latua for the Warriors. Brian Totter Luminous for Panthers. Red Triumph Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. I was about to say Eels. Luke Lormelli Luminous for Tigers. Die cuts Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous Murray Talagi for Cowboys. League Heads Isaiah Yo for Panthers. Luminous Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Game Breakers Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Luminous Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Bang Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Tui Kamika for Storm. Gladiators Kurt Capewell for the Warriors, number 11. Luminous Jake Trbojevic for Manly. League Heads Jack Williams for the Eels. Luminous Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs. Die cut Zach Hosking for the Raiders. Luminous Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Game Breakers Zach Labert for the Cowboys. White for the Luminous. Bang, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Luminous Jack Bostock for Dolphins. League heads Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Die cuts Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Luminous Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. League heads Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Luminous Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Bang, Dean Mariner for Broncos. Luminous Tommy Turbo for Manly. Game Breakers Fanua Pole for Tigers. Luminous Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. League heads Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Mercury Ethan Blimore for Manly, number 15. Luminous RTS for Warriors. Where are we at? 7 or 8, last packet for the box. League heads RTS for Warriors. Tiana Penatani Grey Luminous for the Sharks. Game Breakers Anessa Biddle for the Sharks. Luminous Terrell May for the Tigers. League heads Murray Talagi for Cowboys. Luminous Jack Williams for the Eels. It's the first time we've done that. Panic stations, all good. Sean Blore die cut for Storm. Luminous Stefano Utakamanu for Storm. League heads Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous KO Weeks for the Raiders. They do feel a bit closer than normal. Bang Leka Halasima for the Warriors. Luminous Bo Fermor for the Titans. Game breakers, Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Luminous, Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. And lucky last for the box. Red Triumph for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Alex 12 for Tigers. Alright, well that was box 6 done and dusted. Let's get into box number 7. Game breakers, Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. Luminous, Ali Latua for the Warriors. League heads, Connolly Lumi Lou for the Dolphins. Luminous, Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Game breakers, Mahalia Murphy for the Eels. Luminous, Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. Bang, Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. League heads, Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Luminous, Harry Grant for Storm. Die cuts, Apasai Coruscant for Tigers. Luminous, Renato Molitalo for Sharks. Game breakers, Alafiana Kamki Era for Titans. Luminous, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Bang, Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Zach Labour for the Cowboys. League heads, Renato Molitalo for the Sharks. Luminous, Loco Tonga for the Dragons. Die cut, Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Luminous, Luke Brooks for Manly. Game breakers, Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Luminous, Isaiah Katoa for Dolphins. Mercury Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys, a 007. Luminous Xavier Savage for the Raiders. League Heads Gehamet Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous Georgia Hale for the Titans. Game Breakers Tanila Paseka for Manly. Luminous Josh Kerr for the Dragons. Bang Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Ruben Garrick Luminous for Manly. League Heads Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Mich Kenny Luminous for Panthers. Die cuts Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Luminous Adam Finua Blake for Sharks. League Heads Cohen Hess for Cowboys. Luminous Billy Walters for the Broncos. Game Breakers Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Bang Greg Marsu for the Knights. Tyson Frizzell Luminous for the Knights. League Heads Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Luminous Jalen DeGroot for Titans. Triumph for the Eels. Luminous Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Die cuts Dane Gagai for the Knights. Luminous Cassie Hiku for the Eels. Game Breakers Anthony Blake for the Sharks. Luminous Marky Mark for the Roosters. League Heads Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Bang Gehamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous Wade Egan for the Warriors. Gladiators, Jack Williams for the Eels, number 103. Luminous Latu Finu for the Tigers. League heads, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Game breakers, Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Luminous Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Bang Renato Molitalo for the Sharks. Luminous Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Luminous Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Red Triumph, Brian To'o for Panthers. Luminous Kyle Flanagan for Dragons. Four packets left for box number 7. League heads, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous Angelina for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Luminous Zach Lomax for the Eels. League heads, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Luminous Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Die cuts, Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Luminous Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Alright. Box number 7 done and dusted. Let's move straight into box number 8. I think we're due for a table hit, guys. It's been a while. We're getting low. Let's go. League heads, Apasai Coruscant for the Tigers. Luminous Reese Walsh for the Broncos. Game breakers, Olivia Higgins for the Knights. Luminous Tolatua Kuala for Manly. Bang Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous Dylan Edwards for Panthers. League heads Alehe Hopawate for Manly. Luminous Payne-Haas for Broncos. Gladiators Moses Sulai for the Dragons, number 10. Luminous Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Game Breakers Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. League heads Joash for the Eels. Luminous Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Game Breakers Billy Smith for the Roosters. Luminous Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Bang Ali Latour for the Warriors. Luminous Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. League heads William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous Ethan Blimore for Manly. Die cuts Samula Finu for Tigers. Luminous Jesse Calhoun for the Sharks. Game Breakers James Fisher Harris for the Warriors. Luminous Kurt Catewell for the Warriors. Red Triumph for the Raiders. Luminous Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Mercury Jerome Luai for the Tigers, number 168. Die cut Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. League heads Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous Jareem Buller for Tigers. Game Breakers Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous Xavier Coates for Storm. Bang Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. League heads, Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Luminous Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. League heads, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Dylan Egan for the Dragons. Game breakers, Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous Abby Church for the Eels. Die cut, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. League heads, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous Isaiah Yo for Panthers. Game breakers, Payne Haas for the Broncos. Luminous Dylan Brown for the Knights. Gold Triumph. Didn't even need to look any further. Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. So that one will be a complete reveal. I didn't see player or number when we just found it. Bang Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. Luminous Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Good when we're on the ball and we pick things up that quick. Normally I've got to sit there and look at it and go, oh, nah, that's on the table. Came breakers, Emily Bass for the Tigers. Luminous Asaya Yongi for the Eels. League heads, Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Die cuts, Luca Moretti for Eels. Luminous Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. League heads, Big Tino for Titans. Luminous Jamie Chapman for Titans. Bang Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Jerome Luai for Tigers. League heads, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous Hudson Young for the Raiders. And die cuts, Kale Iro for the Sharks. Luminous Lachlan for the Warriors. Game Breakers, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Hammer for the Dolphins. 3 packets left for the box. Still plenty to go. Red Triumph, Photowaika for Titans. Luminous Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. League Heads, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous Nico Hines for Sharks. And last packet for the box. Bang, James Tedesco for Roosters. Luminous Lehe Hopewate for Manly. Alright, another box done and dusted. Make sure I definitely finish that coffee. Oh, not quite. It'll be cold now, but it'll be alright. Alright, what are we doing? Box number 9. So that gives us 8. Bang, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Asai Youngie for the Eels. League Heads, KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. League Heads, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jamie Chapman for Titans. Game Breakers, Jalen de Groot for Titans. Luminous Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Die cuts, Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous Hudson Young for the Raiders. League Heads, Keanu Kinney for Titans. Luminous Leka Halasima for Warriors. Mercury Hammer for the Dolphins, number 155. Hammer for Luminous. Game Breakers, Patricia for Warriors. Luminous Cohen Hess for Cowboys. League Heads, Jake Trbojevic for Manly. Luminous Nico Hines for Sharks. Bang Marky Mark for Roosters. Luminous Lehel Bawate for Manly. League Heads, Brian To'o for Panthers. Luminous Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Die cuts, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Luminous Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Game Breakers, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Gladiators, Dylan Walker for the Eels, number 44. Luminous Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. League Heads, Jackson Purdue for Cowboys. Luminous Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Die cuts, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Luminous Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Bang Dream Buller for Tigers. Luminous Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Game Breakers, Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous Apasai Coruscant for Tigers. Bang Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous Liam Martin for Panthers. League Heads, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Die cut, Matthew Figo for the Dragons. Luminous Luca Moretti for Eels. League Heads, Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. breakers, Max Platt for the Dolphins. Luminous Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Bang, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous Val Holmes for the Dragons. Red Triumph, Kuli Kefu for the Dolphins. Luminous Big Tino for the Titans. League Heads, Chance Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous Kale Iro for the Sharks. Bang, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Put it in the right one. Luminous Cody Nikarima for Dolphins. Game Breakers, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous Jason Saab for Manly. Patrick Carrigan, die cuts for Broncos. Ryan Pappenhausen, Luminous for Storm. League Heads, Terrell May for Tigers. Luminous Gehamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. This is our fifth last packet in box number 9. Marky Mark, Red Triumph for Roosters. Luminous Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Jeremiah Nanai, Luminous for Cowboys. League Heads, Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous Keezy Apps for the Tigers. Game Breakers, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. League Heads, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Luminous Brighton Nickera for the Sharks. Alright, well, that is the end of box number 9. And I can't say I've seen this before on any of the select boxes. Plastic hasn't quite sealed properly. Just grab it and rip it. So that's box number 10. Just clean up the base cards from box number 9. And we'll get 10 done and dusted. This is our third last box out of the case. League heads, Chanel Harris Tavita for Warriors. Luminous Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Game breakers, Isaiah Katoa for Dolphins. Luminous Hugo Savala for the Roosters. Die cut, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Farlago for Storm. League heads, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous Brendan Smith for Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Luminous Tamale for the Raiders. Premiership Predictor. Luminous Emma Veron for the Sharks. League heads, Jerome Luai for Tigers. Luminous Samula Finu for Tigers. Bang Lycan King Togia for Dragons. Luminous Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Game breakers, Jerome Luai for Tigers. Luminous Stephen Crichton for Bulldogs. League heads, Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. The big one. Philip Semi Luminous for Titans. Gladiators, Sam Verrills for the Titans. Number 316. Stone Cold. Patrick Carrigan, Luminous for the Broncos. League heads, Junior Paulo for Eels. Luminous Dane Gagai for the Knights. Game breakers, Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous Connor Watson for the Roosters. Bang Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Moses Sulai for the Dragons. League heads, Hamoli Olika-Atu for Manly. Luminous Dylan Walker for the Eels. Mercury KO Weeks for the Raiders, number 68. Luminous Zahara Temera for the Raiders. Game Breakers Jeremiah Nanite for the Cowboys. Luminous Brian To'o for Panthers. And die cuts Bailey Haywood for Bulldogs. Luminous Luke Law Lilly for the Tigers. And die cut Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. Luminous Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Bang Isaac Tago for Panthers. Luminous Greg Marschall for the Knights. League heads Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. Game Breakers Bo Fermor for the Titans. Luminous Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. League heads Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Red Triumph Christian Tuipulotu for the Dragons. Carl Lawton Luminous for the Cowboys. Bang Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Luminous Fanua Pole for the Tigers. League heads Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Game Breakers Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous Trent LaRoe for Storm. Die cuts Falago for Storm. Luminous Jamal Fogarty for Manly. League heads Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Luminous AJ Brimson for the Titans. Game Breakers Joash for the Eels. Luminous Marata Nakor for the Warriors. Bang Joash Papali'i for Eels. Luminous Moses Leotta for Panthers. Red triumph for the Sharks. Luminous Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. 4 packets left in the box. League heads, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous Mackenzie Wheel for the Cowboys. Game breakers, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Second last packet for box number 10. League heads, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous Dylan Lucas for the Knights. And lucky last, here it comes. Bang Isaiah Katoa for Dolphins. And Lachlan Galvin Luminous for the Bulldogs. Alright, you're going to have to give me a moment while I quickly duck to the toilet. I will be just a sec. We are back. Where are we up to? Box number 11. Let's bring YouTube back and the team list. I'm hungry. Alright, so box number 11. Game breakers, white for the Roosters. Luminous, Molly Olika R2 for Manly. Gladiators, Hudson Young for the Raiders, number 91. Luminous Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. League heads, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Luminous Milwaukee Fotowaka for Titans. Bang Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous Ali Briginshaw for Broncos. Game Breakers, Harry Grant for Storm. Luminous Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Die cuts, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Jerome Hughes for Storm. League heads, Xavier Coates for Storm. Luminous Casey McLean for Panthers. Game Breakers, Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Luminous Chance Nicole Klokstad for the Warriors. League heads, Ethan Bullimore for Manly. Luminous Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. Game Breakers, Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Luminous William Kennedy for the Sharks. Bang Zach Labour for the Cowboys. Luminous Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. League heads, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Sean Russell for the Eels. Red Triumph, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. Game Breakers, Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. Luminous Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. League heads, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. Die cuts, Aaron Clark for the Warriors. Luminous Teddy for the Roosters. Bang William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous Max Plath for the Dolphins. League heads, Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers, Luca Moretti for the Eels. Luminous Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. League heads, Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Die cuts, Thomas Jenkins for Panthers. Luminous Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Game breakers, Alex 12 for Tigers. Luminous Tom Starling for the Raiders. Bang Casey McLean for Panthers. Luminous Tamik Upton for the Broncos. League heads, Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Luminous Jesse Aramian for the Sharks. Mercury Keanu Kinney for the Titans, number 219. Luminous Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Game breakers, Trent LaRoe for Storm. Luminous Ben Trbojevic for Manly. League heads, Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Bang Dylan Lucas for Knights. Luminous Will Penasini for the Eels. League heads, Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. Luminous Jonah Pezzett for Storm. Die cuts, Latu Finu for Tigers. Luminous Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Game breakers, Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Luminous Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Red Triumph, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous Sarah Togatuki for the Tigers. League heads, Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Luminous Connolly Lumi Lou for Dolphins. Bang Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous Samuel Stone Street for the Sharks. League Heads, Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Luminous Tanila Paseka for Manly. Instant win. Keep that there to the side. Sam Walker, Luminous for the Roosters to finish off the box. Now, we don't need to put these in a box because they will fill up the other ones at the end of the break. So we'll just move them out of our way and grab the last one of our retail boxes. So we have this box and our 2 hobby boxes left to go. Almost there. Curious to know how long a starter case is going to take. League Heads, Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous Jacob Saifiti for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Luminous Zach Labour for the Cowboys. League Heads, Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Luminous Loco Tonga for the Dragons. Bang Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Luke Brooks for Manly. League Heads, Nelson Sofa Solomona for Storm. Luminous Isaiah Katoa for Dolphins. Die cuts, Sua Wong for the Roosters. Luminous Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Game Breakers, Tegan Dimmick for the Bulldogs. Luminous Georgia Hale for the Titans. Bang Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous Josh Kerr for Dragons. Dally M Predictor. League Heads, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Ruben Garrick for Manly. Die cut Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Mitch Kenny for the Panthers. League heads, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous and Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Bang, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Luminous, Tyson Frizell for the Knights. League heads, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Luminous, Jalen de Groot for Titans. Red Triumph for the Titans. Luminous, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. League heads, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous, Cassie Hiku for the Eels. Game breakers, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous, Marky Mark for the Roosters. Bang, Chanel Harris Tavita for Warriors. Luminous, Tommy Gilbert for Dolphins. Die cut, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Red Triumph, Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous, Jamin Salmon for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Kale Iro for the Sharks. Luminous, Cameron Munster for Storm. Bang, Apasai Coruscant for Tigers. Luminous, Brian Kelly for Titans. League heads, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Game breakers, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Jesse Southwell, Luminous for the Knights. League heads, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Game breakers, Dominic Young for the Knights. Katoni Staggs, Luminous for the Broncos. Gladiators, Molly Olika R2 for Manly, number 301. Luminous Asaya Papalihi for Panthers. League heads, Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous Alex Seafarth for Tigers. Die cut, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Ali Latour for the Warriors. We've got fifth last packet for the box. Bang Kale Iro for the Sharks. Luminous Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Game breakers, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Luminous Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. League heads, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Mercury Josh Kerr for the Dragons, number 401. Luminous Harry Grant for the Storm. Last packet for the case. Die cuts, Nico Hines for the Sharks. And Renato Moltalo, Luminous for the Sharks. Alright. That's our retail done. All we have left now to go is our two hobby boxes. So let's just move these out of the way, grab the first one and get stuck into it. We go, first packet out of the hobby, Luminous Dean Mariner 331, etched Junior Paulo for the Eels, number 95. Luminous Asaya Iongi for the Eels, number 114. Luminous, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Number 357. Gold die cut, Ethan Blumore for Manly. Number 200. Luminous, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Isabel Kelly for the Roosters, number 521. Depends on when it's sold out. That one was only listed yesterday. Luminous, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Gold die cut, Peter for Rabbitohs, number 37. Luminous, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs, number 593. Luminous, Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Die cuts, Ben Hunt for Broncos. Well, we won't buy it, so I can't really answer that question. You're best to put a price on it that you're happy with on Facebook or eBay, and you can either auction it on eBay from that, or you can let people make you an offer on Facebook. Apasai Coruscant, Luminous for Tigers, 111. Luminous, Jamie Chapman for the Titans, 151. Playmakers, Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm, number 74. Luminous, Jerome Luai for the Tigers, number 357. Gold die cut, Matthew Tomoko, number 243. Luminous, Hudson Young for the Raiders, number 615. And that's a Dally M Predictor. Luminous, Aleka Halasima for the Warriors, number 257. Etched, Sione Fanu for the Tigers, 155. Alright, we have 5 packets left in our first hobby box. Luminous, Hammer Fido for the Dolphins, number 72. And Big Tino in the Gold Gladiators, number 88. Luminous, Cohen Hess for the Cowboys, number 96. Gold die cuts, Alex Seafarth for Tigers, 101. Luminous, Nico Hines for the Sharks, number 641. Etched, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs, number 87. Luminous, Alejo Hopawate for Manly, number 160. Gold die cuts, Marky Mark for Roosters, number 232. Luminous, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders, number 216. Mercury Sterling, Tolator Koala, number 1. Who got Manly? Ross. Congratulations, Ross. Number 1, Mercury Sterling, Tolator Koala. And that was the last packet in our first hobby box. So let's grab our second and last hobby box. This is the last box of the break. 18 packets to go. Alright. Luminous Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks, number 187. Gold die cuts, Jacob Saifiti, number 9. Luminous, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs, number 142. Luminous, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Luminous, Tyson Frizzell for the Knights, number 273. Gold die cuts, Sam Verrills, number 47. Luminous, Jalen de Groot for Titans, number 678. Mercury Sterling, Kurt Capewell for the Warriors, number 18. Luminous, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders, number 363. And Kurt Capewell again for the Gold Gladiators, number 29. Luminous, Cassie Hiku for the Eels, number 168. Etched, Luke Brooks for Manly, number 30. Luminous, Marky Mark for Roosters, 173. Gold die cuts, Teddy for the Roosters, number 121. Luminous, Tommy Gilbert for the Dolphins, number 615. Luminous, Zach Labert for the Cowboys, 717. Gold die cuts, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders, number 108. Luminous Loco Tonga for the Dragons, 186. Gold Gladiators, Lindsay Smith for Panthers, number 102. Luke Brooks, Luminous for Manly, 543. Etched Jaden Campbell for the Titans, number 85. Luminous Isaiah Katoa for Dolphins, 694. What are we up to? Our fifth last packet. 5 or 4 to go now. This is already into this one. Xavier Savage for the Raiders, number 584. Gold die cuts for the Sharks. Renato Mulatalo, number 215. Don't do that. Luminous Josh Kerr for the Dragons, number 89. Gold die cuts Matthew Feagai for the Dragons, number 150. 3 packets to go. Luminous Georgia Hale for the Titans, number 270. We have another Origin Predictor. We've got a few Broncos in the trade. A few of all teams. Ruben Garrick, Luminous for Manly, number 723. Joseph Tarpanay in the etch for Raiders, number 54. And last packet for the break. Here we go. A Luminous Mich Kenny for the Panthers, number 484. And Playmakers Lehe Hopawate for Manly, number 36. Alright, that's all the packets, but not all the hits. Let's start back at the beginning. Number 34, State of Origin Predictor. It is a Queenslander, Mawaki Fodawaika. Number 34. Alright, next up, Clive Churchill Medal for the Cowboys, number 211. Alright, next up, Dally M, number 77 for the Dragons. Loco Tonga. Alright, keep going. Another Dally M, 116. Isaiah Katoa for the Dolphins. Gold Triumph, number 77. Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Alright, next up, Premiership Predictor for the Storm, number 112. Our instant win once again for the Storm. And our last out of the retail case, Daly M Predictor Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs, number 59. First up, Daly M Predictor Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys, number 76. And last but not least, Origin Predictor. Now remember, these are different to the golds. Number 59, Latrell Mitchell for the Blues. Remember, the Platinums are a player of the series predictor. Where are we? Well, that is it. That is all for this one, guys. Thanks for joining me, and don't forget to check out the available teams on the website, and you could be in the next one. Until then, that is it.